And so we come today and start this new year believing. Today we believe in our city. We believe in its people that we serve. And we ask, as we always do, for your divine wisdom and direction on this board of mayor and commissioners as we strive to make the best decisions for our city and its citizens. We ask continued blessing and favor on our city manager, our staff and employees, and most of all the citizens that we serve and those in attendance today and in our viewing audience. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Let us stand and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wirtz. We have a motion to receive and file the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to receive and file the minutes for the regular meeting held on November 18, 2021, the regular meeting held on December 9th, 2021, and the recess meeting held on December 10th, 2021.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearings and reports. Commissioners.
Mayor, I just have a really quick, a couple of updates, actually. Came out today. The registration for the Soar Summit in Ashland is open. The Soar Summit will be March the 7th and the 8th at the Delta and the Paramount Arts Center. It looks to be a pretty good agenda so far. I met with the Soar people this morning to talk through the agenda. The March the 7th, there will actually be a country music tribute show at the Paramount for the attendees, and then a really good agenda around tourism and economic development at the Delta on the 8th. So mark your calendars for that, please.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, well, I just have a couple things. Welcome. It's good to see all the city employees and folks here on our very first meeting. I would like to say that the AIM Board voted to move the Gravy Bowl, the much-anticipated Gravy Bowl, from February to April because of the rise in virus here. So, also, Marty, I want to thank you for that beautiful prayer. What a great way to start our very first meeting of the new year.
You're welcome.
And it really touched my heart, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Well, I want to say welcome to everybody. I'll be brief because of all the positive things we have on our agenda and all the reports that we have of the different projects that we've had that have been accomplished. I'd just like to make a statement of support and unwavering loyalty to my mayor and fellow commissioners this year. We stand united, and we stand united in seeing the ball go forward down the field. And I just wanted to make that statement because I appreciate them so much and the great year that we've had. This past year has been a joy. It really has, because I think we've worked together. Now, we're all different. We all have different personalities, different political affiliations, and so forth. Me and my wife are different. I'm kind of like microwave Marty, and it takes her an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes. I mean, she's just super slow. But that doesn't mean we don't get along, and we don't strive to get along. I've pastored in Sarita Canova for the past 8 years. There's 2 city governments there. There's a city government in Canova and city government in Cerrito. There's a city government in Cerrito, where my church has been together since 1978. And I went over there one day and I said, how does this happen? And one of the city councilmen said, because we just get along. The first and foremost, we strive to get along, because if you have dysfunction, nothing will happen and nothing will go forward positive. And that was a good lesson for me. And so I just appreciate you guys and so much, and I look forward to 2022 as being the same kind of year. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Thank you,
Very
Commissioner.
nice.
Appreciate that. Just a word about the, we had some snow I guess it was a couple weeks ago. And the city staff did, as usual, an amazing job. All of our departments working together to handle that. And we know that we've got some snow coming, so everybody be aware of that. And I know that's on our radar already for the city. Next week, Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and I know our usual celebration that we all love to go to at the train station will not be happening this year, but there are a couple of events. ACTC is having an event, virtual event on January 18th at noon. You can find information on that online. The American Red Cross and Ashland for Change are partnering for a blood drive on January 25th in observance of the holiday. And I don't want the holiday to go by without mentioning a couple quotes that I really like. And I think it's possible to draw inspiration in other phases of things that you see in life, not just what Dr. King was dealing with. And one quote is, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." And I really like being part of a board that encourages discussion with our staff, our citizens, and each other. I think that's something that inspires me. And also, change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. And, you know, as we continue to try to improve and work through things and change things for the better for our citizens, there's struggle that comes with that, and that's okay. That's why we're here, and it's all good stuff. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
All right.
When's that, where is that blood drive? Or
At
when?
the-
where-
Thank you for saying that. It's at the train station,
Okay.
or the transportation station.
All right, we have a lot to do today, and I appreciate my commissioners' comments, and, but we are going to move on to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'd like to start with Mike Atkins and the recognition of the KEME Award. With us today is Jeff Floyd, the Safety and Loss Control Manager, Kim Justice, Claim Relations Manager, Christina Link, Underwriter for the City of Ashland account, and I'm missing one.
Megan Napier.
Thank you very much. So, Mike, if you all would please come up so we can do the presentation.
Thank you very much for having us. If it's okay, I'd like to give you a little background about the award. Kentucky Employers Mutual Insurance writes workers' compensation in the state of Kentucky, and we have approximately 21,500 accounts on any given day, and pretty much all types of business. We have coal mines, school systems. We actually have Boyd County here in Ashland, and about 145 school systems is on. And so we, several years ago, about 10 years ago, we wanted to recognize the best of our best from a safety perspective. And so we kind of began to think about ways in which we could do that. And we obviously, with 21,500, we wanted to come up with a way to pare those down. And so we put in a few things in terms of loss ratio, as you can expect, and an experience mod, which kind of tells us, gives us a number that kind of gives us an idea of how good an account is and that sort of thing. So I had to have an experience mod at a certain level, a loss ratio at or below a certain level, and so on. And so we started doing that, and then giving those awards out to those that we knew deserved it. And so this year, we ran the list of those that are eligible, and we had about 62 that were eligible for the award. And then we sent out a questionnaire that kind of asks one happened to be, you know, how are you dealing with the current environment, you know, and how, briefly describe your safety program, and so on and so forth. And fortunately, we've had your all's policy for several years, and we have had, so we've got some data, we'll say, on you all. And the best part of that is, for us, has been the relationship that we've had with Mike. You know, I count Mike as an asset to us, and I hope we're an asset to him, because I pick his brain often, and so does a couple of other of our staff members and so forth, because of his knowledge and experience and so forth. So anyway, this year, out of the 62 that initially went out, we selected 31 Destiny Award winners, and you guys made that list. In fact, this is your second year in a row. And we are extremely proud of the fact that we have your workers' compensation. We mention your all's name quite often when it comes up. We give examples of Mike's leadership to others that are looking for ways to implement safety initiatives and so forth. And it's not easy. You know, the best thing about this award is it takes every employee of the policyholder to win it. You know, you can't really have a good effort made by 30% of the employees, or even 90% if the other 10% don't buy into what you're doing and so forth. And so, and cities are a challenge with all the different departments that they have and so forth, and spreading that message of safety throughout. And it oftentimes trickles down, believe it or not, from the seats that you guys sit in. So it, again, it's an excellent story. We appreciate your business. We appreciate Mike and what he has done, and we're just here to congratulate you on having won the award now the second year in a row. So, Mike, I will shake your hand and hand this off.
If you don't mind getting a photo off.
Really appreciate it more than welcome.
Mike, can you all come up here for a presentation with the board, please? Yes.
What, you want us down there? Oh.
I do want to make a quick comment. The safety of our employees is paramount to us. They're not just employees to us, they're partners in what we're trying to do to better our city. And it means a lot to us that you would recognize us for the efforts that Mike and all the management team are doing to make sure that every day our guys in the streets, guys in digging up holes with water line breaks, our sewer department, our fire department, police department are doing all they can so that they can come home to their families. And so we appreciate that, and we look forward to hopefully winning again next year. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It just blows me away when, 31 out of 20,000 plus organizations. I mean, it's just really telling. And as the mayor said, hopefully Mike and staff next year, it's a three-peat for those.
I would like to say, I want to thank all the employees of the city of Ashland, and also, I told the mayor this, your folks' continued support. I consulted for years in this role before I came to the city, and it never works unless you have the support of top management. We've got it here, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Doing a great job.
Okay, Mayor and Commissioners, next we've got Mr. Mark Sneeve, who's a senior partner at Strand, and he is going to give a presentation on the wastewater treatment plant and what we've done with pre-engineering. Mr. Sneeve, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Is it okay if I speak with my mask off? Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm Mark Sneeve with Strand Associates, and we've been working with the city on your wastewater treatment facility improvements for the last year and a half. And the first thing I'd like to introduce is a rebranding of the name of the facility. We're going to rebrand it to the Water Resource Recovery Facility because that speaks more to what the facility does. It accurately and efficiently recovers a waste and creates a resource. We discharge treated effluent to the Ohio River, which is somebody's drinking water downstream. We guard that very carefully, and your staff do a great job with what they do. So today, I'm going to advise on the status of the preliminary engineering design. Let me begin with an overview of why this project is important to the city. There's several reasons. The first and foremost is that as part of your combined sewer system, the system that accepts a combination of stormwater and wastewater, the state and federal government obligated the city to develop a plan, a strategy, to abate the impact of that pollution. And as part of the long-term control plan that was authored several years ago, this is the last of the projects that the city has to complete. Because you had the attention of the federal government and the state government, this was bound into judicial action called a consent judgment. The benefit to the combined sewer system operation is that this will increase the amount of peak flow that can be treated, store wastewater within the facility for later treatment, and by doing so, abate the impact, the frequency and volume of untreated sewage discharges in your combined sewer overflows. There's several other important aspects to the project. You have a very aged asset that works every day, every hour, every minute of the year. Some of it is well over 40 years old and really needs some care and attention. You have a lot of assets that have outlived their useful life. There's some other benefits to the project. Facilitating additional hauled waste being treated and received by the city represents a new revenue stream to help fund the utility. Preparing for future regulations, this is the first major project at this facility for many, many years, and we don't want you to complete this and have to start the next project because regulations changed. There's also efficiency improvements gained on both energy use as well as the tools in the toolbox that your operators have to operate the facility efficiently. So the engineering effort of this project really has 4 phases, and we're at the end of the first one, which is preliminary engineering. Beyond this, there'll be final design, bidding, and ultimately construction of the improvements. So there's a long list, I believe there's 16 bullet points on this slide of all the details that have been minded in this first phase of the project. I'm going to go through those on subsequent slides, so I'll give you a recap of.
Can I just interject one thing, Mark?
Absolutely.
And Mayor and Commissioners, you'll on the previous slide that looks familiar to you, Mark and Stranda do an excellent job every month of giving us that update that you all get the opportunity to see. And so that's been the framework since the beginning of the pre-engineering, so that should look familiar. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's begin with surveying. We have to capture certain field data in order to do the engineering. That's been completed. We've helped work with the city and staff and management to look at the various components that will be included in the new design. We've worked to select the right equipment that your staff is comfortable with and has seen and talked to operators who operate it. We've helped with property acquisition. The existing treatment plant needs additional space to be to construct the improvements. Ultimately, the land between the treatment plant and the Ohio River, owned by River Metals Recycling, was selected for the expansion site. And the acquisition of that property is in the final stages, should be wrapped up shortly. We've done environmental and geotechnical explorations of the new site, and that didn't lead to good news, but we needed to know that news. The site that's going to be used to be built on is an old landfill, an old disposal site, which means a few things. First of all, any spoil that's excavated from that site has to be taken to a landfill, which is going to add some dollars to the project. And also, the foundation material for any structures is really not good material to build structures on. So there's going to be some special foundations that will be required, as well as some special construction techniques. Those will add a little bit to the project bottom line. Because the site is between your facility and the Ohio River, and it's actually on the river side of the floodplain, we have to coordinate with FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, to construct in that space. We've done some early modeling of that and believe that there's no regulatory hurdles that we have that can't be jumped. We still have to develop some paperwork and get their ultimate approval, but everything looks favorable.
Hey, Mark, can I ask a question? On that landfill that's over there, the property that we're getting is not very large, right?
It's not many acres now.
So there's more landfill over there, though, correct? And do we know how deep it is, or?
Well, I think to the point, Commissioner, if you look at this slide, and if you look to the right-hand side of the slide, the original intent was that we would expand to the east, which is on the right-hand side. And that's where the former landfill is predominantly covered. There's not any or very little on the north side that we're attempting to acquire, correct?
There's a little, not much, but there's a lot of cinders and things that have been placed in that space over time. It's not like a municipal refuse landfill, but
Okay.
it's disposal of
Oh,
other
Okay,
materials.
all right, thank you.
But we're talking an existing, where we are right now is right there, right?
Yes.
And so we're talking, this landfill area we're talking about is where the new plant essentially would be.
Can you go back a slide, Mark? I think this will highlight it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So if you
Purple
see
area.
the little triangle piece on the left is critical, but then the rectangular piece, which is technically on the north side, that's what Mark is talking about. There's not much debris there or issues there. Our original focus was in the red, if you can just see that little slice of red, and that was what was so problematic. We knew there was history of the landfill there, but until the environmental observations went on, didn't realize it's just not doable there. And that's kind of the point of that talking bullet.
So will this new facility incorporate our existing facility or anyway, or is there a full transition?
Oh, you're gonna see that. It's coming up.
The good news is we're making use of every aspect of your existing plant.
Yeah.
Great.
As part of our early engineering effort, we completed a liquid hauled waste study to help the city understand there is a market to accept hauled waste from other vendors. To do that, you'll need a little extra equipment to protect the treatment plant from that hauled waste, but it creates an opportunity for additional revenue stream. We visited the site with structural, mechanical, electrical engineers and really looked at all the aspects of this aged facility to identify what needs to be included in the project. Through that assessment, we've identified a number of needs. Probably the most important is that the old dewatering building shown in the photo is over 60 years old and structurally is not suitable for being repurposed again. It's already on about its third purpose. So that's going to obligate a new dewatering building being constructed. It's going to increase project costs, but at the same time, the space that occupies is the perfect spot for the headworks. So we're going to use that space and actually reduce project dollars for that. There's going to be a recommended consolidation of laboratory, administrative, and maintenance activities in a new facility. Some of those components, some of those spaces that are used for that today are right in the way of some of the improvements. So we're having to do something, and we'll show you what the recommendation is.
Mark, one other comment on that in regards to the liquid hauled waste. So I believe this is true that the only places that take that liquid hauled waste and think septage from either homes or other locations is in Portsmouth and Huntington. So there's an opportunity, if you do a SWOT analysis on this, there's an opportunity for us to treat that, which is in line with everything else that we normally treat. We're not talking leachate, things from the dump. So this really is a very potentially lucrative opportunity for us.
Yeah, if you have the right facilities, it opens a new market for the city. Thank you. Another important aspect of the project, again, the CSO component, is working with providing more peak flow treatment capacity. So I have good news here, that we were able to work with the state and look at actual recent data that was collected by the city. We were able to downsize the volume of storage that is required. It was going to be 3.5 million gallons. It's or 3 million gallons. It's 2.25 million gallons now. That storage is going to take place in 3 out of 4 repurposed tanks on the project. The really good news is that 4th tank can then be reused for some other purpose, like sludge storage. So that, I think, was a success story. Disinfection, right now, the treatment plant disinfects the effluent for
Sorry,
safety.
are you saying that, so am I interpreting that we have more capacity than what we really need right now?
With 4 tanks.
Right now, well, yes and no. Let me explain it a little bit more thoroughly. Right now, there are 4 rectangular tanks that serve a purpose of settling. Those tanks have been a failed technology that the city's lived with for 40 years. They're going to be replaced by new circular tanks that you'll see that are more state-of-the-art, very reliable tankage for settling. But we were planning all along to take those 4 tanks that are being decommissioned for settling and use them to store peak flow. What we found out through our analysis is that we could get by using just 3 of those 4 tanks for peak flow storage, and that allows us to use that 4th tank for solid storage rather than building some additional structures.
Okay.
So we found a way to work within the existing footprint of your tankage to your benefit.
Right.
Great.
So we have 0 peak flow capability right now. So when we hit our peak flow, it goes straight into the river, and we're below the EPA-directed percentage to treat that. As part of the trips that we went to other locations, I think Frankfurt had like a 10 million gallon storage tank. But it's also, back to your point, Commissioner, that repurposing the facilities that are already out there, and because of the need to go from 3 million to 2.5, that opens up that 4th bay. And you guys have all been down there, you all have taken the tour. This is a portion of the plant where it's got those devices that go back and forth that literally are held together with baling wire, I think, at some points. And it's a magnificent reflection of James and his crew and Jeff back there who've done a magnificent job, and their predecessors to keep that running. But what it does, instead of us doing like Frankfurt and building a 10 million gallon holding tank, we get to repurpose that space to the point of 2.5 million. So we hit those peak overflows, we put the excess in there, then when the rain event is over, we treat that.
Okay, so it's more, I'm in manufacturing, so I always think about capacity in a certain way, but this is more about capability, I guess, the capability of what we're doing with the flow.
Well, so now we can hold up to 2.5 million, right? In a high rain event, that would have gone straight into the river.
Right.
Our plant can reach so much, so we get to hold that now, so it is operational, but it also, the biggest focus on the consent decree is, hey, Ashland, you gotta treat more of this.
Right.
Above, and I forget the percentages.
But we're currently meeting the standard, is that correct?
You are right at the edge of the standard, yes.
And
So we are at the standard, but we have been told we have to improve this?
So the city's capturing and treating 85% of the combined sewage that's collected. Yet the city still has discharges of 50 times a year where untreated sewage is going to the river, and that's what's got the attention of the regulators and asking the city, what can you do to reduce the frequency and
In terms of
volume of
stormwater,
those
correct.
discharges?
And that's untreated sewage in terms of stormwater.
It's a combination of stormwater and untreated sewage,
Okay.
yes.
But I want to take the opportunity to also tie back to, because I think that we've missed an opportunity for a real positive news story, and that is on 29th Street, when we did that combined sewer overflow, when we did that separation, on a dry weather day, 200,000 gallons of rainwater goes into the river where we treated that before. on a wet weather day, up to 4 million gallons that we don't need to treat goes into the river. That's just stormwater, that's perfectly fine to, but that, so that also is part of this, not geometry, but part of the formula of, as we move forward. So that, this has all been sequential, set up with the long-term control plan, you know, as we get to this, well, why didn't we do the plant first? We were the city was very optimistic about what they could divert as part of the 29th Street. Had no idea on a wet weather day it'd be 4 million gallons.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. I was asking Steve earlier, that's the only reason I'm brushed up on this right now, is I was questioning why we did the plant last, and that's really, it all lined up sequentially, and you know, for those of you who've been here a while, there's other things besides 29th Street that
Yeah.
we did on lift stations, et cetera. I think even back to one of your first terms.
When it very first started,
So, but that, again, it all ties together.
yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because it reinforces why this is a success story. Instead of using all 3 million gallons, we were able to look at data that's been collected after all these other projects have been constructed and implemented. What do we need today? And it turns out we could get by with less, which created a new opportunity for that tank to be used for a different purpose. I was going to share a little bit about disinfection. Right now, the city uses chlorine gas to disinfect the effluent from your treatment plant before it's discharged to the Ohio River. That's an obligation the city has. We considered a variety of different techniques that would get the city out of using chlorine gas, which is a safety issue.
Yeah.
We were able to identify a lower cost, capital cost solution called peracetic acid. We've toured facilities that use it, and we were able to actually reduce project costs by using that particular disinfectant. Dewatering, I mentioned that we're going to build a new building for that, but we also looked at what technology should be used, which pieces of equipment should be employed. We did some pilot testing with different technologies, and we selected centrifuge as the most advantageous technology for that. And it's a very high efficient piece of dewatering equipment, and it will be constructed within a new building.
So how caustic is peracetic acid that would be to the tanks?
So peracetic acid is safe to add to the liquid if it's added just to, it has to be stored in a special tank before it's diluted in your liquid. But once it's diluted, it's perfectly safe to your tankage. The next component of the project is to try to, again, try to maximize the investment by making sure that the plant is as energy efficient as it can be. There's a few aspects here. We're going to employ high efficiency motors, but also the selection of the biological treatment process is one that will reduce the energy bill for the city to treat all the waste that you're being asked to treat. So we were able to mind your future electric bill through the recommended improvements. Talked a little about future regulations. The nutrient removal strategy was incorporated into the project to look at two pollutants that are on US EPA's radar screen, nitrogen and phosphorus. The city does not have a limit for those today, but several states have already advanced to limits, and Kentucky is working through the state to impose phosphorus limits and eventually nitrogen limits. And the issue with excess discharges of nitrogen and phosphorus is it all ends up somewhere. In your case, it's the Gulf of Mexico. And there's ecological damage occurring in the Gulf because of all the nitrogen and phosphorus that's being discharged. Now, granted, the wastewater treatment plant is a small fraction of that. Agricultural activities is the larger fraction. But US EPA has the ability to compel you to remove those pollutants easier and more quickly than addressing nutrient runoff from agricultural practices. So a little bit of good news on this is that the biological process can be upgraded using existing tankage that you have. That gives you the opportunity to save money increase the amount that you treat and remove it more effectively. So that's what's being recommended in the project, is repurposing your existing tankage. We've also developed some preliminary drawings, and we're using, technology is amazing. We can use 3D graphics and a 3D model to design the facility, and that's ultimately given to the contractor to help him bid and design the project or construct the project. But this is a picture of the recommended administration, laboratory, and maintenance building. Administration function is on the lower right. All the lab facilities are on the upper left, and the taller structure in the back is for maintenance. The benefit of this is it centralizes all your staff for efficiency. Some of the facilities that are used for maintenance today are being wiped out by the new facility expansion, and it consolidates the administration and lab functions as well.
And you'll likely remember on the trips down there, the current maintenance building is a shed.
Yeah.
It is not a building in my definition.
So this is a 3D rendering of kind of an aerial image of the site, looking towards the river from the front end of the site. And you'll see kind of the exposed dirt area. That's where the new facilities will be constructed. The 3 circular tanks are the new settling reactors. Every bit of the existing infrastructure is being reused for a benefit to the new project, except the current dewatering building. That's being removed, and on the let's say the lower left, you'll see a dewatering building, and next to that is a 2-story building that's a headworks. I'll zoom into those in a minute. But those are new structures that are being added. Here's the dewatering building. It'll have 2 bays for sludge trucks to remove sludge from the facility, and the open equipment room will have the dewatering centrifuges and all the related equipment for that. The new headworks building will be built where the existing dewatering building is. It'll be a 2-story building. We have to pump the wastewater in at a high enough elevation that it flows out by gravity, and we don't have to repump it again. So it's elevated a little bit. There'll be screening to remove debris from the wastewater, and also some ability to capture grit and sand type materials that are problematic in combined sewer systems. As this phase wraps up, we're going to package the entire document together into a basis of design report. That's really a way to commemorate all the decisions made in the early phases. Funding and helping the city to pursue funding was another aspect. Through the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority State Revolving Fund Loan Program, there's an opportunity for the city to take a 20-year, 1.25% interest rate loan, very favorable conditions and terms, and they're also offering some free money to the city to help offset project costs to the tune of $1 million. The city, I believe, is in the process of advancing that particular funding. I think it's very favorable for the city. But also, since 2010, the city's had a CSO surcharge to your rate structure, and the city's been intentionally taking rate dollars and storing them up to help fund or offset the cost of this project. So there's a pool of resources to begin the project with. I wish they were adequate to cover the entire project cost, but it's certainly a nice chunk to begin the work with. And also the city's looking for additional funding sources with infrastructure funding coming from the federal level, and even the news that the state is including additional money in the state budget for water and sewer projects. Ashland being poised to pursue any additional resources to try to minimize the project impact to your ratepayers. And we stand ready to help the city continue those evaluations.
May I interrupt you for just 2 seconds, just to comment to the commission, just because I follow it regularly. Depending on which budget passes, you're looking at $250 million or $500 million in water and sewer budgeted state dollars. from federal dollars as well. So there's prime opportunity to look at those sources.
Yeah, we as a board have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. We must turn every stone before we take any further action, in my opinion, looking at funding sources. This is a probably once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see the federal government and the state government putting real dollars down to infrastructure that is so desperately needed across the state and across this country. And I know for a fact that the city manager and our engineering department and our utility director are going to do everything they can to seek out that funding. And that is exciting to us because we have a project that's ready.
Yes.
And that's what they probably will want to see.
For sure.
Absolutely, and, we stand, support the city in all those efforts, and we'll help turn over every stone, Mayor.
Well, I am really heartened because I can remember when this first came to City Commission, when you first came here, and the first time I ever heard CSO, and I'm like, why didn't somebody tell me about this before? It seemed so insurmountable and just like it would go on forever, and I'm really heartened to see that we've come, that, we tried to put money aside and, because we knew this was coming and made a commitment to the people of Ashland that this would be done for the better of all and for the future of our city. So it's marvelous to see we're at the end stage on some of this.
Yeah. It's been a long road.
Yeah, you've
I mean,
been around for a
15
while,
years of
Mark.
projects.
Yeah, you had dark hair when you first came here.
I'm quite certain that I did.
You may have too.
All right. Well, thank you for those comments. The project to date has had a few challenges. I call them curveballs because we were still able to identify a way to advance the project in spite of these. We changed the site from the site that was originally being considered. The new site has some structural issues with the soil, and we've found a way to overcome that. It did add to the project cost, but there's ways to account for the fact that we don't have really good supportive soils. About halfway through our effort, the landfill, your single largest customer, came in and said, hey, we'd like you to take a third more landfill leachate as our landfill continues to grow. And, it's not a lot of flow rate, but it's really a lot of pollutant loadings. Their discharges account for about half of the pollution that you treat on a daily basis. So for them to ask for an increase caused us to go back and reevaluate sizing of certain things, even tweak the process that was recommended. We have a way to accept that, to help the city say, yes, we can treat this leachate, but it was a curveball.
They asked for an increase in our ability to handle their
Yes.
material. Yeah.
The city
Receive
treats,
revenue from that, obviously.
it's a great revenue opportunity. The city treats about 90,000 gallons per day of this landfill leachate, and they've asked to go up to 120,000 gallons a day.
It's approximately $800,000 last year.
Yeah. It's probably good to point out our service area. It's, where all does our system, not just CSO, or not just wastewater, but water.
Yeah,
I mean, we sell to, we have a big area. It's not just the city limits of Ashland.
right.
Exactly.
Regional water supplier.
Right.
There's some synergy with the landfill because the city takes sludge from your treatment plant and disposes of it in landfill. So, you need to lean on them for your disposal, and they're asking to lean on you for their disposal. We talked about the dewatering building not being able to be reused. And then, right now in the current economic conditions, you hear a lot about labor shortages and supply chain issues. We're recommending that your construction duration be extended from 2 years to 3 years to give the contractors enough time to get the work built and not put them in such a bad spot in case something is delayed or in case they have trouble staffing their construction crews. So, just given the current economic conditions, we're recommending you extend the duration of construction.
How does this switch over, the
That's a good
process?
question.
How does this work?
So, that's a very insightful question. In our business, we like to refer to it as we've got to change the oil while the car is running.
Yeah,
It's a very sequential process. We
Yeah,
can,
you just don't have a no flush day.
everybody's got to hold it for a few days.
In the middle of the summer.
So the improvements can't happen throughout the entire plant at the same
once,
time. We
okay.
have to give the contractor some instruction. You have to do this before you can do this, and when you do this, you can only take so much of the units out of service. So it's an orchestrated process to keep the car running while we change the oil.
okay, yeah, makes sense.
So now for, what I regret to have to tell you is that the project budget's increased. I've talked about some of the challenges and some of the things that we might have thought could have been repurposed, maybe having to be reconstructed. The project cost opinion today is $59 million, and that's up over $20 million from where we thought it was when this project started, really 15 years ago. So some of the things that really impacted project cost, the new dewatering building is new to the project. We weren't expecting or envisioning that. The subsurface conditions to build the new structures on is going to increase project costs for the foundations and the hauling of landfilling of any soil removed. Adding the nutrient removal process today is an opportunity for the city, but it comes at an expense. That will set you up for future regulatory compliance. Mentioned the landfill leachate, again, as a really sizable component to your pollutant loadings. Their increase has caused some changes to the way that the project is recommended to be advanced. We're consolidating, partly because of abandoning or having to eliminate other facilities because they're in the way, but we're consolidating the maintenance, administration, and laboratory functions. We're in a position, unfortunately, of very significant inflation right now. And because of that, we've accounted for it in additional time for the contractor, which increases your project costs, but also prevents them from bidding too high of a number because they can't get the work done. And also, we've increased the contingency budget for the project. Usually at this stage, we recommend decreasing that, but we're actually increasing it because of the volatility in the market today. So recognize there's some extra contingency built into the budget. The project schedule is shown here. Even with extending the construction period a little bit, there's still time to get the project completed by your deadline. So rest assured, you're on track to meet your end of 2025 deadline for completion. And for the city, the next steps are to advance the final engineering phase. You'll hear more about that at your next meeting. Also, turning over every stone, looking for additional funding to help reduce the impact to your ratepayers is something the city and will be assisting with. And then if you choose to close the loan with the state revolving fund loan through KIA, Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, that would be a near-term activity for the city. And thank you for the opportunity to give you an update. I regret that I have to share the contract cost news to you, but rest assured you're getting a project that will set the city up for success in the future.
I just have one question. So it looks like a 60% increase from the initial cost to the current cost. Construction inflation maybe 25% this year. So the extra built-in inflation increase cost, solely maybe from one specific area other than construction?
I would say if we look at that list, every one of those bullet points in the bottom of the slide represents an increase to the original project scope, and each of them have dollars, and if you add the impact of all of those up, they represent that $20 million of increased cost. So there's not one thing.
I didn't know if there would be one specific project, where the new dewatering building, if that, what the cost of that was per se versus,
Yeah, I'd say probably the single biggest impact to the cost is the subsurface conditions.
Yeah.
That's gonna add about $6 million to the
Project.
cost of the project
Wow.
to, it takes special foundations. We
Sure.
can't just put this new structure on the subsurface. We have to have
We don't want it-
pilings,
yeah, we don't want it
yeah.
sinking into
there-
the river.
Is there a paucity of materials for this type of construction?
There are shortages right now of materials for the construction. Right now, I'm constructing a number of other projects, and the contractors are having a real hard time getting piping to meet the project needs that they have, so,
From what I understand,
There's
we have
some-
that problem in other areas.
yeah.
I could just see
And,
that could
and when we go to bid on the project a year from now,
you know.
the construction market will be different. I can't tell you it'll be better, I can't tell you it'll be worse. It's probably gonna be a little different than it is today, and we'll have to be poised to deal with whatever it is at that time.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I think this is good information for, obviously, us as a board, but I think it's also important for our citizens to understand that we take all aspects of our water system seriously, including treating the waste and making sure it's being done in a responsible, environmentally correct manner. We're going to get this project done. Previous commissions had the foresight to include that CSO charge, and I know it was a difficult decision for them, but I think it was an important decision that enabled us, obviously, to not have to look at bonding a huge, significant cost or amount of money for this project. So, but thanks again for your hard work, and thanks to our city team for putting this together.
Thank you.
Great job,
Thank you.
Mark. Thank you.
Great.
Mayor, I'd just like to echo that. Every step of the way that it's been, and again, it's why we have James and Jeff here and Mark. Mark, you guys have done a magnificent job. There's nothing that, I think when we've gone on our trips, the monthly meetings that are had, that I don't think there's, again, to use that term, I don't think there's any stone unturned. I can't feel better about this. Of course, it's a hard pill to swallow on some aspects of this, but I don't think there could have been more detailed analysis of where we're at and what this city needs. So you all have been very professional every step of the way, and very honest about everything. I don't feel like there's anything hidden that we aren't prepared for. Again, there's a lot of variables we can't predict, but we've identified what we do know, and I really appreciate that. It gives me a lot of comfort. I know it does Steve and the rest of the team also, so thank you. Mayor, I'd like to transition to a couple other things before we go to the end of the year accomplishments. I did mention that previously I'd stopped briefing COVID, but obviously, given everything that's going on in the community, I think it's important to raise this to everybody's attention. We currently have 69 positive cases out of 154 total exposures. 9 employees are currently out that are positive. And to put this into comparison of statistics I've briefed you before, I talked about Surge 1 and Surge 2. If you combine those two, from March 2020 to January 21, we had a total of 39 positives. As I mentioned, we now have 69 positives from August through yesterday. This is a challenge. I want to recognize the directors and the leadership. They've been doing a lot of juggling with personnel. It's required flexibility on the personnel, on our staffs. It's had some personal impacts on them, on being able to cover down in certain areas that are critical, but it's not less of a challenge for the city than it is for the rest of the community right now, and kudos to the staff. The other thing that I've given you updates on, you're going to see a portion in here on the removed blight, specifically in a request for an adjustment to the budget. On the removed blight, at this point, we have 12 houses that have been totally cleared. We have contracts approved and waiting to be executed are 22. And with this, if you all approve the first and second reading of the budget adjustment, that'll add 14 additional houses. So in this fiscal year, we'll have demolished close to 50 homes,
Wow.
blighted properties in this community. As always, CED and the people that are working with CED are working to stretch those dollars as far as they can go. So it may be right at 49, but maybe we get over to the 50 area of blighted properties.
I do want to comment just on that specifically. You know, we don't own these properties once we demolish them, so they are still private property. And I challenge our legal department and obviously finance we need to look at ways moving forward where we have committed these significant investments in getting these blighted properties removed. We also need to get these properties back on the tax rolls and back into private hands. Government is not and should not be in charge of private property or taking down homes for people, but we understand that's a concern and a need and a project of many cities across the country, that they all have to remove blight every once in a while. Not everybody's circumstances financially are good, and some people are no longer with us, and they're just estates that are holding these properties, and they're just sitting there. So we must do all we can to see that these properties that we have spent a significant amount of money on get back on the tax rolls.
Mayor, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's funny that you say that because I actually had that in my notes as part of discussion on that particular item, because I want to make sure that we are moving forward in trying to figure out a plan for that, and not just letting those continue to sit idly as they have.
Yeah, I think some people think, well, the cities will become land barren, and so I'm really glad you mentioned that, and it's well said, well said.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, Commissioners, moving into the last portion I had today, if you can bring up that first slide, please, Michelle. So this is the third year that we've done, at least I've done here, where we've done a similar format on the accomplishments of the previous calendar year. And it always amazes me as we put this together. Again, I want to thank the staff. They're just so talented, dedicated, experienced, and overall just professional. I mean, the folks that you're looking back there and the people that they represent are just absolutely amazing to me. And when you look at the accomplishments for the year, there's so many things that we do that we forget about. Some of it's mundane, some of it's, strategically important, as we've talked about today with the wastewater treatment plant. But I just can't, every time we put this together with the input that we get from the staff, it blows me away on everything they've done. We've got a 22-page printout. If anybody wants us to email that to them, we'd be glad to. What I've got on these next two slides is just really the 30,000-foot view of some things that I think the community and you all would be interested in. So if you look, starting doing this alphabetically, then at the very top of the list on the Ashland Fire Department, ran 2,100, roughly 2,100 incidents this year. Special note, we had no fire fatalities this year, so the first year since 2015. In regards to running calls, the police department had 22,546, which is about what they had last year. Something new this year, the Safe Street Task Force, which focuses on street level type of incidents. And then also our HIDA continues to perform and, again, make strategic impact. So you see the combination between the tactical and the strategic here with these two organizations that we're part of, and we don't do this alone. There's relationships with, at the federal level, also the state level, and other local communities and their law enforcement organizations. From community and economic development, sixth year in a row, I really like to highlight these things of, much like we talked about on the Destiny Award, that's a standard that we're aiming for now. We want to hit that every year. CED has been very successful in earning the High Performance Agency Award for the sixth year in a row, and we've already talked about the blighted properties. Engineering, broadly speaking, the feasibility study, the downtown transportation feasibility study has taken a lot of time, and the efforts that are going into that. 6 projects completed, as we've mentioned in here before. We had an $11 million bond 2 years ago for utilities, the $14 million in ARPA. So you can imagine what it takes to execute $25 million in utilities that the mayor and commissioners y'all have focused on, keeping that emphasis there. And engineering and the rest of the supporting staff is doing a fantastic job there. In terms of repeated awards, this is no small task on the CAFR for finance, 14th consecutive year, and the Distinguished Budget Award for the 7th consecutive year. So talk about sustained excellence that's reflected in Tony Michelle back there and their staff. and doing it under some pretty challenging personnel conditions this year. Because of their customer service facing, they had a real particular challenge with COVID this year, and another example of staff leadership doing some juggling. And per the board's direction, moving to Saturday service on the Ashland bus system, which I think our citizens appreciate and value and desperately needed. The second portion of this on human resources, we've already talked about the Destiny Award a second time. Parks is just too many to mention. If you take a look at the report, you'll see a lot of the things that they did this year and the different activities. And even that was, carbureted, if you will, because us coming out of COVID. I mean, you think about it. We know that we want to get to these 240 events a year downtown. Of course, the Visitors Bureau has done a fantastic job in working with us, but just a lot of great efforts. You all are very intimately familiar with the different things that are going on in the parks right now, the skateboard park, the all-access playgrounds. It's been a magnificent transformation in our parks. And then transition of 750-plus employees and dependents to the Delta Dental was a lot of staff work. Sean and his folks for doing that great job. In the legal department, $435,000 in delinquent ad valorem taxes pulled up. And then just broadly speaking, a lot of crucial legal advice that Jim and Andrew provided to you all, to me, and to the rest of the staff. They're constantly available. They always give sound advice. They help get us to yes, doing things legally, of course. So a great job there. Michelle has been a master of a jack of all trades. I just list one bullet point there on the grants. This does not include a lot of the other grants that we're talking about, like the fire department grants, but these are detailed specifically in the report. In public services, I love what Jack has done with capturing some of the statistics that they've done this year. You'll remember Lexington Avenue, that's been a problem for years, if not decades, on the pooling that's been out there. And Jack and his folks took care of that this year. Took us a while to get paved because the access to the paving contractors coming in here, but that's all reports I've heard on that have been fantastic, and the citizens down there appreciate it. See the potholes filled, miles of street sweeping, signs made. People forget that we do that. So if there's signs in the city that are neglect, please report that to us. We want to get them fixed. We've got that capability. 909,750 tons of municipal solid waste, which is about what we hit last year. Same category. Flood wall compliance, we're in fantastic shape at the flood wall, better than we've been in a really long time on maintenance and forward-thinking maintenance. And then finally, in the Department of Utilities, you see what was produced from the water treatment plant, 1 billion gallons of water. You're going to hear in the very near future, when we get the SCADA implemented and we come off the agreed order, we're within striking distance of coming off that agreed order. We're just waiting on the state. And we're going to be publishing some additional statistics about the quality of water. We had numerous notices of violation that occurred in 2016, 2017, and we've gone 20 straight quarters, Mark, with no chlorine. Is that correct? DBP, thank you. Disinfectant byproducts, no violations there, so that is an astronomical change. You'll notice the line replacement that you all, Mayor and Commissioners, dedicated those funding to, 5,200 feet of replacement. Again, that's not repair. 235 breaks this year, which keeps us on right in that 80 breaks per 100 miles per year. Looking at the wastewater treatment plant, seeing what they've treated this year, and wastewater collection also, sometimes they get forgotten about, but they were very aggressive this year with main line replacement. Again, this doesn't happen without the funding and the dedication, Mayor and Commissioners, that you all put that laser focus on getting our utilities up to snuff, because we all understand that's very foundational for us to do economic development, that if somebody looks at this community and sees some of these abhorrent statistics, it's difficult for us to compete with other communities, and this is really foundational for our future. But again, to everybody on the staff, I just can't thank you enough for your hard work, time, and dedication that you do to make this city such a great place to work, live, and play. Mayor and Commissioners, unless you have any questions, that.
No, but I'd like to say kudos to every city employee. You all are the ones on the front lines making this happen. Some great leaders.
Yeah, we have asked a lot of you all, that's for sure. And in a challenging year with a pandemic, a couple years with a pandemic, You all have exceeded our expectations. You have gone above and beyond, and we are forever grateful for the great work you're doing. So I appreciate that, and I think these accomplishments highlight just what a great job you all are doing. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is this report going to be available on our website, I hope?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Michelle, like right this second. Okay, public participation. Anyone with a comment or request may come to the podium and address the commission concerning matters related to city business, services, or personnel. Anybody like to come forward? Okay. Moving on to old business.
All right, old business, item A. Second reading and final adoption of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky, amending ordinance number 151, series of 2018, as amended by ordinance number 133, series of 2019, to provide the professional services for the Pollard Mills Drainage Improvement Project in the amount of $421,800 shall be paid from the general fund, capital purchase improvement fund, utility fund, and community development block grant funds.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda, we have reading and adoption of a resolution of the City of Ashland, Kentucky, adopting, authorizing, and approving the course of action presented by the city manager on the items appearing on the consent agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of City Commissioners of January 13th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
New business, item A. First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Ashland, Kentucky, authorizing and directing the mayor to execute task order 2201 between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and Strand Associates, Inc. regarding the 2021 annual combined sewer overflow reports for the Department of Utility Operations in an amount not to exceed $16,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item B, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Ashland, Kentucky, adopting the job description for the position of accounting assistant, deleting the position of database facilitator, both in the Department of Finance, and adopting the amended authorized positions list of the policies and procedures, compensation plan, and classification plan as adopted by ordinance number 51, series of 2017, as previously amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item C, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky, authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an amendment to the agreement between the City of Ashland and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, reallocating funding for the 15th and 16th Street Sidewalk project.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Does anybody want to elaborate on that?
Basically, this is just an actual design fee that's higher than was originally budgeted. It has no effect on our match for this grant. And broadly speaking, this was an effort by the Finance Department, another good effort by the city to get a grant. This is through Kiowa, correct? Okay. And it started off with a ADA access to the senior center, and also some ADA issues associated with the bus stop on 16th Street between Greenup and Winchester. And we're trying to expand that and include within the proper definitions of potentially doing some streetscape and extra cement work as legally is allowed, trying to get as much grant money as we can for this. It's an 80-20 match. Michelle and Tony, is that correct? Thank you.
Just to point out there where you're talking about the senior citizen, there was a little bit of an issue there that they reported, and I think we reported, and Jack took care of it literally like that day. They fixed it that day.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item D, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky, amending Section 2 of Ordinance Number 83, Series of 2021, commonly known and referred to as the FY 2021-2022 Budget Ordinance of the City of Ashland.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a question. The demolition program increase of $225,000, where is that coming from?
It is actually coming out of our fund balance.
Okay.
We had a surplus in fiscal year '21.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I want to just inquire, what is the used car? What,
It's actually a detective vehicle, and if you look further down in the note, being purchased with,
drug forfeiture?
Right.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't know.
Well, I think all of us can agree that this is money, again, well used to remove blight, so we
Yes.
appreciate it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item E, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Ashland, Kentucky, authorizing and directing the mayor to execute Amendment Number 1 to the agreement between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and GRW to provide engineering services for the preparation of abatement and demolition bid documents for the building located at 1401 Winchester Avenue, increasing the cost in the amount of $40,360.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item F, reading and adoption of a municipal order entitled, a municipal order of the City of Ashland, Kentucky extending leave under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I just, basically, if you can explain, is this basically reinforcing what is already law?
Yep, thanks, Mayor. If you'll remember, at the very beginning of COVID, the feds put out a program that said that they would reimburse municipalities and I think other organizations up to 80 hours to encourage people that potentially had symptoms not to come into work, that it would not go against their sick leave. And that basically, we extended that when the feds didn't, when I say we, I mean the city and you all, did that until the 31st of March 21. Subsequently, the city made a decision, you all made a decision to continue with that the city would pay an additional 80 hours. So if they used 80 hours before, and then with the onset of Delta, we wanted to have that same effect on our employees. So employees could use 80 hours up to March of 21, and then 80 hours after March of 21. And that really is a very positive thing, especially given what we didn't know about Omicron and Delta at the time. So you can't double dip. Once an employee reaches 80 hours, they have to go into their sick leave. And then they draw down sick leave, and then they would go to vacation. We've only had a couple instances that I know, and I can't even say that with confidence. I'm not sure anybody maxed out the 80 hours.
And my other question is, obviously, there's mandates from the federal government in regards to vaccination and all of this potentially impacting and our employees. Do we have any more guidance from the feds on that?
Thank you, Mayor. So if I understand correctly, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Supreme Court heard that case last Friday. They're still waiting on a final ruling. If you'll remember, that was mandated through OSHA, and that is organizations with employees of 100 more, they would either get vaccinated or there would be weekly test requirements. That was the option that we were leaning towards and making a recommendation. So you either get fully vaccinated or you have to wear a mask and get tested weekly, correct? And so we're waiting on the final decision of the Supreme Court. And also, Mike has done a lot of coordination at the state level, and they have advised the cities to be in a hold pattern on enacting anything in regards to the OSHA guidance until the Supreme Court decision is made.
And also, I've seen some guidance also that reduces the amount of time needed to quarantine
To 5 days.
to 5 days. Have
We're-
we adjusted our policies to meet that as well?
We've adjusted that.
Okay.
Mike, is there anything you want to comment on that, Mike?
I don't think so. I think we've communicated it all to everyone. I believe the reduction in the isolation and quarantine times have given the department directors more flexibility. But bear in mind, where anyone is symptomatic,
Of course.
the original time frames are still in place.
Okay.
So it's basically just targeting those that are non-symptomatic.
Do you know if the majority of our folks who are inflicted with this have the Delta or the regular, or what, they just don't know? There's no definitive answer?
I don't know how to break that out at this point in time. I can't give you, I think there's probably overlap now. I can tell you we have seen an upsurge here in January. I think it was 11 or 12. We've had 3 more this morning since you reported your numbers. But the fact of the matter is, and I was telling one of the commissioners earlier this, that I've noticed since we're dealing more with Omicron now, it seems that the severity of the people returning, they're returning quicker. There seems to appear to be less severity, and I think this bearing out throughout the nation at this time.
Yeah.
Whether or not it will stay like that, I don't know. But we did have more people from the period of August through, up until about Thanksgiving. We had more people with extended illness than what we had in 2020 and what we're seeing now. So hopefully we're in the period where it's less severe.
And one other thing that I want to thank the staff for, again, finance and HR, is that when we do those personal action requests that annotate, one, the proof from the medical professionals that, you know, whatever the quarantine is, that if the feds do come back and say, hey, we'll grant that money to you, we've got really solid records to go back and get that. And so, great effort by HR and finance and anybody else who was involved in that.
Well, I think we all ought to extend our best we extend our best wishes to our employees and hope them better health soon. I mean, we're concerned, so.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item G, Mayor requests the Board of Commissioners' concurrence for the reappointment of Tyler Branham to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term beginning on January 1, 2022, expiring on January 1, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item H, Mayor requests the Board of Commissioners' concurrence to the reappointment of Rachel Branham to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term beginning January 1, 2022, expiring on January 1, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item I, Mayor requests the Board of Commissioners' concurrence the reappointment of Al Baker to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term that began on January 1, 2022, and will expire on January 1, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item J, the Mayor requests the Board of Commissioners' concurrence on the reappointment of Charles Jackson to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term that began on January 1, 2022, and will expire on January 1, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Jim, guidance on this? Are we meeting tomorrow?
Yes, I think we need to just have a recess until tomorrow, is my understanding, unless you all feel differently. That was to reaffirm the appointments, the personnel appointments. Yeah,
Okay.
so
We
they
have
can go into effect and
motion
get
motion to
started.
recess
So
till
moved.
Second.
It was a 9 or 8:30?
8:30.
8:30 a.m.
3 a.m. tomorrow morning.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, our meeting is recessed.